Now, the haunted hotel was a good idea, but bad execution. And I think the reason why it was sort of bad execution is specifically the pacing of the jokes, and the characters are too cliche. But the idea was interesting, but it's not the first time the idea you had heard of before. It's because it's falling into the haunted hotel, but you have to work there because the family needs the money. But the twist is one of the family members is a ghost, and that family member left the hotel of his own sister, not knowing he was actually a ghost. Explain what's sort of happening. Now they have to run the hotel, but the hotel have years of bad luck of people dying left and right, from the cultists, the hospitals, to a just normal hotel. They have so many people murked in this hotel. If you tell different stories, different time periods, and the idea is sort of unlimited with an animation approach because you don't have a limitations. It's all about the writing and the approach and the lore. And the only problem is they stumbled. It's because of how everything sort of was introduced. You really don't understand the characters, who they are. You understand what type of cliche characters, but the only problem is it's not as well executed that I actually wanted. Now, before I continue, my name is Rachel. I like to talk about animation, not just animation, the reviews, first impressions, cartoon theories, or sometimes, if I have some spare time, cartoon breaking news. Of course, you like how it's going, you like to help my channel, put a like, comment, and subscribe. That's the only thing you need to do. If not, that's fine. If you do, thank you. Because of you, I'm getting close to my main goal of 2,000 subscribers. And yes, I'm getting close every single day because of people like you. People put like, comment, and share. Thank you. Now the continue of this new Netflix show called The Haunted Hotel. Now let's get started. Now the most interesting thing about this show is sort of the dynamic of the sister-brother sort of relationship, because the brother is a ghost, the sister's alive who owns the rights of the hotel. But she can run the hotel is because a lot of ghosts is basically scaring the customer away. But the only problem is she can't quite fix the house if she does have the money. She usually asks one of the ghosts to help her to fix it, but at the same time she want to get rid of them to actually have some customers. This is what the contrast thing of the brother has, is the fact you cannot get rid of the ghost. The ghost is one of us. Of course, some of them are disturbing, sort of obvious, but we can make a sort of deer. And that's the thing that makes the show kind of interesting. That's sort of grouping how to live in the hotel. Some places they shoot hunt, other places they shoot. They show you the division, who is who, to understand the sort of situation. But the only problem is it's sort of hard to care if you know them. Most of them sort of one gag joke characters. They repeating their joke, but you don't get to know enough. And I think that's sort of the issue. If you have so many different ghosts, little bit of you should introduce their backstory, who they are. You don't need to make it grand, just enough to interest you who they are and get to know them. You allow them to develop the joke even more. Like for example, you have a ghost from 1950s. Of course, that ghost have a lot of questions. Who could be gay, could be straight, or how the light works. You have so many things you could do with that simple premise, but yet it's super kind of basic, and that's the issue. You have decent drama, especially the back lore of the hotel, because it was the cult once, also a hotel who would have dozens of murders. You also have a sort of a hospital went wrong, could be experimenting of all the patients, but yet you don't get that deep lore you want. Like they give you a certain specific time period. You know something's off because every time they have someone new alive who attempt to help a hotel, it was sort of a twist is that they want to bring the evil things to come out the hotel. That itself could make it interesting, but the only problem is you don't know enough. And that's the issue, because relied off the basically the sitcom sort of idea. Do not tell the backstory, tell the jokes, their personality, how each one kind of get one up with each other. But that's the problem. All the characters, all the rest of the characters, specifically the kids, are basic. You have seen them from The Simpsons. In fact, the two characters feel like Bart and Lisa, but reverse their personalities. That Bart is Lisa and Lisa is Bart. And you have another character who is basically a Brian type of character, but is a human being, but it's a kid who actually was possessed by a demon who is not respected because he's not as evil and powerful as before. Once again, you have interesting concepts, cliche, you have something to give it into, but the only problem is it doesn't work. Especially, it doesn't help. Most of the jokes seem sort of familiar or seen done before because this is the same writer who helped make Rick and Morty. It's one of the writers, and you could tell, yeah, it's some of the writing rhythms of Rick and Morty. But the only problem is Rick and Morty has a point why they do this, what specific genre, how to reverse that specific cliche. And this show tries to do the same thing, but the only issue is I feel they're just so basic. I feel there's nothing really in depth. I think the only reason why it doesn't work is how they introduce everything. If they introduced the very beginning, how the brother had died in the hotel, how the sister relationship with the brother is off, how you see all the guests, how they got murked in the past, gave more sentiment. Because Rick and Morty is a sentiment show, and they forgot that main point because they wanted to make it easier for them to make it sort of a sitcom. It could work if the jokes are more better paced because the setup is interesting, but the punchline just fails completely. But once more, it doesn't fail all the time. I feel a good 20% of the time it kind of does work, but the rest of the time it just drags, unfortunately, because it does have you very interesting sort of concept like what happens if one of the children get possessed who is a medium, how you make that work in the show, or make it a teenager and make it sort of like an orgasm. Every time he touches someone, he likes it, and this way he kind of end up with a girlfriend who is dead from the 1990s. Once again, very interesting idea, very weird, but yet it kind of falls flat. Something about how they push the punchline does not feel right. Now, the animation is decent, nothing really special, but when they need to push the horror, it nails it. But the only problem is some of the character designs you kind of question a little bit. I think one of the things is you quite notice is the arms. Some of it is just really length in some apparently. You don't know why. I guess this sort of artistic point of view. Maybe they thought very visually appealing. I honestly don't know. But it's one of the things you really do notice. If you're trying to pretend not to, but you do notice this weird choice of design of the character. But that's the only thing I have issue with the animation. Like, I feel the horror aspect is nailed down what is horror, but it feels it's sort of a second thought of the show because they want to focus on the comedy, all the cliches of some sitcom. Like, the mother doesn't trust the daughter, her sort of friend is sort of evil. But the only difference is the twist is sort of a ghost lady who made her join the gang. Once more, something you hear before in a sitcom, but the twist or the mother dressing of the idea doesn't feel right. It almost feels like they think they have a good idea, they kind of do, but how they execute it feels off. It feels sort of weird. It doesn't really land the idea. And that's sort of the issue. Like, every single time they do have a good idea, it feels off. And this is the reason I could not even finish the series because it's just disappointing every single time. Like, the only time is sort of the side jokes kind of grab my attention. In some the lore, like, they kind of drop a little bit here and there. For example, they realize the house power is not generated with a normal power. They have a windmill to regenerate the power in the house, but they don't know why they're actually happening, why they have this, and instead they explore it, but you find out they're ghosts protecting the tower, and that's sort of weird. That never happened before of this world. Why are they actually doing it? They drop things like that to grab your attention, but there's one big issue. you do not care about the characters. If they're sort of dramatic or the sort of situation about to get murked, you don't really care as much. And that's sort of the issue with this show. They have so much potential, but the execution was just sort of not original or not well executed. And that's sort of the problem. I don't know how you felt about this. Do you think it was a show with a neat idea, bad execution, or you think the show is good, you could deal with all the issues? Tell me down below or let me know. I got nothing else to say. Just thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and have a wonderful day. Bye.